So a little while ago, I wrote a post that said, you won't catch me using the phrase drugs and alcohol because alcohol is a drug and it's a hard one at that. Um, and I think we're passing through this interesting moment where people are kind of realizing that. Um, you know, I saw somewhere that I think it was either 2024 or 2025. Um, Alcohol consumption across all age groups is at a 90-year low. And there's probably a few reasons for that. For me, I've, I very rarely drink anymore these days. I was never, had a problem with drinking or had like a real difficult time stopping it. But I think over time, the risk reward ratio just went really down for me. And, you know, I, yeah, I think there's a few reasons. Like, I think there's just the cultural reason is a big one that people still drink or still, drink excessively. Um, there's a parable that I always use for different situations. A David Foster Wallace commencement speech. He talked about two fish swimming along, younger fish, and the older one swims by and says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water? Enjoying the water?" And and then they kind of whisper to each other like, "What is water?" So in other words, like they're like water is such an ingrained part of their experience, and they don't know anything else besides water that they're not even sure what it is. They don't know the air that they breathe. They don't know the oxygen that they're getting from the water around them. And that's what it seems like, the alcohol culture is in the United States and a lot of other places in the world. Um, that it's such a part of culture or um, you know the food and beverage industry that it's almost invisible. Like people kind of put it in a separate category. That they don't think of it as like a drug. And the definition of drug is substances. I pulled it up here. Substances that alter physiological or psychological functions when introduced to the body, including medicines, illicit narcotics, and psychoactive compounds. Yeah, it's funny how it even includes some examples in there. But by this definition, you could even include food as a drug. So anything that you ingest that's going to change, how your body works or functions, or if you deprive it. I guess maybe drugs would be they're optional to take, whereas food is not. But still, ingesting something that will change you. Um, so, I think, with my own journey, yeah, the risk ratio just really dropped. I never, I went, had some partying years in my late teens and early 20s, but eventually I just kind of realized through experience and hangovers, and I think, a growing body of evidence of how bad it really is for you. I have a feeling we're in this period of time where alcohol was kind of the cigarettes of the past. People smoked all the time, everywhere, and then eventually people realized that it was, not good for you, um, and it really, dropped off a cliff. I think alcohol is probably going to be going through that moment, and I don't think it's going to disappear, nor do I think it necessarily should disappear. I think there's the pub culture. There's some positives to it. I'm not saying it's all bad, but there's I think a shifting attitude towards like, man, what am I really doing? Why am I drinking? And then there's like tons of pop culture, pop science stuff coming out. There's a big long Andrew Huberman podcast about the really strong effects of alcohol on the brain and the idea that they say, oh well, one drink per week or one drink per day is not bad. It's like, actually no, there's no safe level of ingesting alcohol. And um, so yeah, I don't know if I can really um, articulate all of the reasons why I stopped and was able to stop. I know, it's not. I think sometimes alcohol is like, yeah, it's because it's so ingrained in the culture. It's just something you do, and you don't really think about it too much. Um, In other ways, it's some people use it as a crutch, for emotional crutch. Some people, it's more of an intense addiction where they're actually physically addicted to it. Um, but yeah, I think it's going through a time that people are really questioning it and saying, and especially I think like also with the emergence of all the positive um, effects of different types of drugs like psychedelic drugs or things like that. I think just the nature of just human nature, it's hard to get really nuanced about these things. It's like there's something that's drugs that are bad and other things that are okay, and there's not a spectrum that we can have a debate about like what drugs are good and bad and should be allowed and should not be allowed. I think that's a conversation that's just too hard to have for a majority of people. Um, but but yeah, these days I may have a drink here and there just for for fun or for the taste. Like I still love the taste of a margarita or a Guinness beer, something like that. I might have one. Um, but there's also I think a lot of the alcohol companies are seeing these trends and these numbers too, and they also have the 0% Guinness and all these things that have very trace amounts of alcohol, and you can still enjoy the taste. Um, but yeah, I don't think people are ready to. I think they're starting to question it and starting to understand that, oh man, this is a drug and a hangover is not a normal thing. And I feel terrible right now. And oh, it's, like it's so in the culture that people just laugh it off. Oh my God, I was so hungover. Oh my God, it's hilarious. It's that when in reality, if you can drink too much and die because it's poison for you. I mean, even in small amounts, that's what it is. Your liver has to process it, and your body has to get rid of it because it's a poison. So I don't want to get into all the different scientific and health analysis. There's tons of that out there. Um, and again, I don't think I can articulate all the reasons why. My life and my mental health and my attitude have probably improved, which have helped me not even need to consider that and not to consider drinking. So beyond just a personal choice, it probably became an easier choice, as I got healthier, emotionally, with relationships and just grow in my life. Because again, I don't think it's just uh, a habit. Sometimes it's just something you rely on. Um, but but yeah, feel really good and a lot better now that I don't drink, hardly ever. And yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the new trends and information coming out now. Um, and I like to see that there is some more nuance coming into it, and if people do want to let loose and relax with a substance and enjoy, they're considering other options. So yeah, that's where I'm at with alcohol, and I do think we're looking at a future where people will look back on the moment that we're in now and be like, wow, people really drank a lot and hard, and they didn't know how bad it was for them. In the same way that we look at, doctors from the 1950s smoking with their patients in the in the examination room and laugh at it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'm if you watched all the way to this point, yeah, curious to see if you're seeing the same thing or if you have anything to add to the conversation. Shoot me a message or comment below.